My college draft is proud to announce my conference called Educate You. Educate You core areas will cover recruitment, retention, and how to build a strong alumni base of underrepresented and first-generation college students.
All right, you're tuned in to another edition of the Educate You podcast, being brought to you by My College Draft, where education is the new money. Today's topic is, and subject matter is, how does the urban environment prepare students for higher education? I'm your facilitator, Lamont. I got my homeboys with me today. I got Dr. Ricky Frierson, our scholar in-house, and I got my homeboy, David Hardman, better known as, did you see what I see? Of course not, because that's why I'm asking you that question. And Mr. Derris Hawkins-Smith. How y'all doing? Good. So again, today's topic, subject matter is, how does the urban environment prepare students for higher education? The title is so appropriate, the urban classroom. So let's start with that question. Let's start with, how does the urban environment prepare students for higher education? We represent a lot of different cities, so the floor is yours.
Who you want to start?
Well, I thought Chicago or East St. Louis was about to jump at me. So, so go ahead, Dr. Frierson.
So yeah, I think that number one, I want to say that I think the urban classroom is underrated in preparing students for higher education. Partly because we know that society is becoming more and more urbanized and more diverse. And so, number one, these students know how to operate within multi-settings, multicultural settings. They know how to operate, not only in being in an urban environment, urban classroom, but being just a minority, underrepresented citizen in the United States. They know how to operate in a predominantly white industrial mindset as well. And so this is something that kind of gives them a natural advantage of that they're used to being one of a few in certain settings when they're going across the city or visiting or whatever the case may be. And so when they go to a predominantly white college, in particular, I think there's a little bit of added advantage of adjustment and adaptation because of knowing how to maneuver, or what we would call code switch, knowing how to code switch between the urban environment and a predominantly white environment, number one. Number two, I think the urban environment is also preparing because now higher education, for all intents and purposes, I mean, this is still debatable. People might send some comments back, and I'm ready for all comments that people want to send. But, higher education and the curriculum is just now catching up to be multi-centric in its understanding and philosophy of teaching and pedagogy. Most of our curriculum in higher education is still very Eurocentric. And so if you're in an urban setting and you have depending on who is in front of that classroom, number one, but most of the times in those urban settings, you're ingrained, or there's a little bit more embedded understanding of cultural significance towards that topic. So, when you're in an urban setting, there's going to be a little bit more time about, multicultural influence in history or development of business or inventions or whatever the case may be. And most curriculums in higher education is still whitewashed. Let's be honest, it's still whitewashed. I mean, there's a wonderful slide of a brother down in Houston who says in one of his presentations that white privilege is white privilege is the fact that your history is taught as core curriculum and my history is taught as an elective on our college campus. So, I mean, that's the very much thing, is that minorities are going to come in, I think, more well-rounded in understanding, or I shouldn't say minorities. Those from urban sectors might come in more well-rounded because they're already being influenced and exposed to multicultural settings, multicultural dimensions, instruction, education, simultaneously, whereas our counterparts and other colleagues might still be catching up to understand cultural influences on some of these disciplines.
So, Brother Derris, I want to go with you next because I want you to talk about what it is that you do now and talk about the different conditions that you face in the environment in which you are you're employed.
No doubt, I couldn't agree more with Dr. Frierson in his synopsis, because it's very true. I saw it firsthand when I was, Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. I saw brothers come from Chicago who had never been, brothers come from urban areas who had never been in these rural areas before. So there's a bit of cultural shock, especially when you get in the classroom, and you used to be in the majority in the classroom, and now you're the minority, and for me, it was something I was used to from where I grew up at. But so knowing how to navigate those situations. But like you said, then you have vice versa, like what Dr. Frierson was just saying, you have people from these rural areas who've never been around, people from urban areas, and so for them, it's a, and I saw firsthand, like he was just saying, like, the people from the urban areas were more able to, able to adapt as opposed to, from what I saw from people from the rural areas. I think it was more of a, also from the people from the rural areas, there was less, they were less likely to want to be willing to adapt. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like, hey, this is what I'm used to, this is what it's going to be type thing. And I think that's a cultural thing as well, especially a lot of us, from those urban areas, we're the ones who unfortunately always end up having to adapt, a lot of the times. That's something we become, conditioned to, we there is no such thing as, well, I'm just going to do it my way. You know what I'm saying? When we get in certain, areas, or certain fields, we know it's just something we have to do, unfortunately. But I'm going back to your question, Mr. Thompson, Brother Thompson. I would say that right now I'm in Baltimore, man. I'm in the inner city, college and career coordinator on the west side of the school, west side of the city, I should say. And this, man, like, this is the first time, I was previously in higher ed, so it's my first time being in secondary, being in a K through 12 setting. And especially in the city, man, and it's the challenges. I I really underestimated the challenges, And what I mean by that is there's only so I'm learning. There's only so much you can do. What I'm saying, in the sense of, there's systemic, issues, that we know throughout the country, as far as education and in urban settings, and especially with students of color. But then, within each individual school building itself, there's a hierarchy, obviously, with the principal, the deans, the vice principals, this, that, and the other. And your philosophy may not be somebody else's philosophy. You know what I'm saying? And who, and me coming in new, like, who am I to tell somebody, who's been doing this for years, how, what's effective and what's not effective. And so, but I think the biggest issue is there's so much, and I'm sure you brothers know, there's so much that happens outside of the classroom, before the students even get to the school, that affect their ability to learn, man. So, and that's when we start getting into trauma and things like that, man, and, PTSD in the hood and stuff that people really don't want to talk about. But it's like, man, right now we're dealing with students who on a daily basis, man, homelessness. So now you talk about COVID-19, right? So COVID-19, okay, we're gonna find laptops for them. We're gonna get them these codes for their Wi-Fi and hotspots, but what if they don't have somewhere to live? That's something that, that people are taking consideration, and then now you talk about with COVID-19, overnight they took away these after school programs and things like that. These students depended upon that. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of, in these urban areas, a lot of their parents and their guardians are those frontline workers, so like, when I say frontline, I don't mean necessarily in the hospitals thing. I'm talking about, like, McDonald's are considered frontline workers, and even if they're working driving a bus, or if they're working, whatever it may be, some of them might work 2-3 jobs. So they depend upon the after school programs for that child to go to after school. A lot of times they don't want children in the house by themselves, for safety reasons, whatever it may be. So now you've taken that away. Or those students have siblings, that are younger siblings. So during the classroom, they're actually, during our, the class time, they're working with their little brothers and sisters, trying to help them with their classroom stuff, and that's just something that, and I don't know if you all have, younger siblings, but that's something we learned growing up. You have to do, like, you take care of your little brother and little sister before you take care of yourself. So those are things we're dealing with, man. And then I see a lot of students, have taken this time where in a virtual space, they're like, hey, I'm about, Amazon's hiring, I'm gonna work these, this Amazon job. And it's like, for me, it's like, I get it, man, because you got to, they see what's in front of them. They see, like, right now I need to eat. You know what I'm saying? So however I can eat is how I'm going to eat. And what I try to convey to them is like, man, I get it. You know what I'm saying? You can still work, but, we got to get this diploma, because you can do a lot more with that diploma, But, it's easy for me to say this at 43, you know what I'm saying? At their age, man, they like I said, they living day to day. So I can't get mad at them. I'm just frustrated with the system and the situation as a whole. So that's where it is, man. Like, just as far as learning environments, what I've seen so far, it's just, it's a lot, man. Like, it's a lot day to day, man. Like, so I think that there needs to be more of a concentration of people on like like I said, I feel like collectively we understand this, but I think there's people who should understand these, people who make decisions in the Department of Education, things like that. You can't not just about throwing money at a situation. It's about what we're gonna do with this money. You know what I'm saying? What are we gonna do? Like what kind of programs we're gonna set up? What kind of like we talk about like the homelessness and things like that. Like instead of us just buying all these backpacks, which is good, backpacks and having food drives, what about let's set up some temporary housing somewhere, you know what I'm saying, for, or like LeBron's school where he's getting the parents GEDs who don't have GEDs and things like that. That's the type of stuff that I feel like, is going to help long term, as opposed to just, like, hey, we put $3 million into this to this school, but there's, we have, we don't see any, impact in the results or anything like that. But because like I said, it's all about, backpacks and college tours, and that they might not be, saying only 2-3 students are going on these tours or whatever it may be. Don't get me wrong, that's all, that's all great, but we got some real life stuff happening in these inner cities, man. I know it's not just here in Baltimore. That's everywhere. Chicago, East St. Louis, Kansas City, wherever you may be. This stuff is happening. So I think it's, we got some real stuff we need to take care of ahead of time. I don't know if that answered your question, brother, but that's what I was at.
Can I add to that though? I think one thing when we I think one thing for the listeners to think about when we talk about systemic, you have to understand that systems are made up of policies and procedures, right? And so that's essentially what I hear Brother Hawkins-Smith talking about, right? Is that money is one aspect of the system. And so, yeah, you can throw money at something, but then are you equitable with that money, that financial resource? But what about manpower as well, right? Or personnel? What about actual, like you're saying, geographic stable living, right? And these all are stemmed from policy. What is the vision, mission of that organization? What policies drive that mission and vision? And how are those policies impacting adversely or advantageously certain communities? And so I think when we see this, one thing that I kind of like about the way that you phrased this topic, Lamont, is that it also provides a way for us to provide a counter narrative, because a lot of times we do look at it from an at-risk lens, and we don't look at that the way that they've been able to adapt, the way that they've been able to survive, the way that they've been able to persist with the limited resources that they have. And now when you come to college, you have all these resources that you just, once you can get in, what I'm saying, once we can find, now you get all the ability to accommodate, right? If that's the ability that we have as a system, is we have many resources that we can utilize to accommodate certain students, give book vouchers, give a scholarship, temporary housing, internships, assistantship, etc. You name it, we can do that to make it work. And so it's really also teaching, urban students, when they get all these resources for the first time, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. I did not know about an internship until my senior year. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know that you can get paid before you go to get graduate. None of that stuff, right? And so you don't know what you don't know. And so one thing that I think, once you're able to fully dispose a student to what resources are available to them and how those tools work, they know how to adapt. They know how to use that for their advantage. And then all of a sudden you just have to teach them, like, this does this, this does that. And they off to the races. So I think, it provides a counter narrative to this, at-risk thing. Not saying that it's not true. There are aspects of where they're coming from at risk, but at the same time, we provide high expectation and teach them how to utilize the resources. I believe that, or I choose to believe that students will be more successful because they're not dumb. At risk doesn't mean low intelligence. Right. At risk just means low resource, low accessibility to opportunity to be successful. And now we're trying to do that for them. So
again, you're listening to the Educate You podcast, being brought to you by My College Draft, where education is the new money. Today's subject is, how does the urban environment prepare students for higher education? The title is The Urban Classroom. So there's a couple of different things that Brother Hawkins-Smith was saying that I want each one of you to kind of unpack for me, because we were all those students at one point in time. We were walking those environments, we were walking in those footsteps. How was it unpacked for you? Because where I'm just calling you Doctor already, Hawkins-Smith. I'm speaking something to your life, brother.
I
So
appreciate that, brother.
to get from A to what Ricky was saying, there's a lot of in between. So how was it unpacked for you to even know that college was even, one, an opportunity, and then two, that you can be successful in your pursuit of the education process and higher education?
Go ahead, D. David, go ahead and start, man.
Oh, yeah, I was say, Brother
I
Harvey.
didn't know that was coming to me. I thought it was. So, man. So for me, one of the things that you touched on was disabilities or learning disabilities. That's a huge part of my process as far as trying to get into college and being written off and having to fight for myself to figure out what those steps are going to be. But I had to go seek out the resources, right? The counselors and stuff that were in my school, yeah, they were focused on trying to get people through the door. But I went and took the extra time and sat down in the office and said, hey, my goal is to go to college and this is what I want to accomplish and how could you help? But I had to take that extra time and invest in myself in order to make that happen. Some of the things that were brought up makes that difficult when you're trying to help two younger siblings, which I had, making sure that they get to school, they get home, everything is taken care of. If your folks are at work, so on and so forth. But there is something very, very valuable in being able to invest in yourself. I tell my students now here at the college where I'm at, who are like, I need to go home and help. Because like, it's way easier to help somebody up once you get up. So if you get everything figured out, you can get yourself on your feet, then you can go back and help them instead of you constantly being pulled into this, revolving door, so to speak, or you're trying to help everyone else's agenda and you can't really get yourself off the ground to really help. So
Unpack it. I like it. Unpack
Mine
it.
was.
Go
You
ahead.
want me to go or?
Yeah,
mine was
go
simple.
ahead, Dr. Frierson, and then go ahead, Hawkins-Smith, because we represent different environments, but yet the water is the same. So you go ahead, Dr. Frierson.
Yeah, so I was a military brat, right? So I ended up graduating from a predominantly white area in Kansas, but in high school, and mine was real simple. To know about college, to get into college, it was sports and females. If I wasn't getting an offer from a sport, it was which female I was trying to hook up with. Where you applying? Oh, you want to go apply for colleges? Yeah, I'll do that too. Straight up. It was sports and those were my two options, right? And then once I got in, I learned. And so, like I was part of like the, I ended up going to Kansas State and I was part of the pilot program, which was like a mentorship program. I started realizing like, oh, there's other brothers that's smart. Like, this is cool. This ain't, you don't got to hide your intelligence. And so once that was cool, because I knew I had intelligence, but, I thought my ticket was sports or I'm just going to rock with some female. And so once I got to college and I realized like, okay, I can really expound on my intelligence here. It's not all, and then sports didn't go my way real quick. Once I got there, then I realized I got to rely on my intelligence. And so what I did was really focused on getting scholarships, like the Dean's Award and stuff like that. But I went to those tutoring shops and stuff like that. I'm the only child, so I didn't have little brothers. So there was a selfishness to me of like, I'm just going to do what I want to do for me. And it's also honestly for me, a major change in my life was when I joined Alpha. I mean, when I became part of Alpha, I had a brotherhood and that really, that mindset at KT or at Kansas State was really beneficial for us and that's for real for me. That really helped develop the scholarship side of me. But I still lacked, not knowing where to go ask about, like I said, internships, not knowing where to go ask about things. But I did take advantage of like doing a study abroad trip or something like that when I heard about it. But some things I didn't hear about, I didn't know about. So that's kind of how I got exposed to things like that.
Are you tired of all the emails and phone calls from colleges that you never even heard of? Sign up to Wheresmydocs.com and only work with the colleges that you choose. Wheresmydocs.com, where college recruitment is made simple.
No, I think I agree 100%. Everybody's journey is different. Mine, myself, it was crazy, man. I tell people all the time, both of my parents worked in higher ed by the time I was in high school, so they were both working, but they were finishing their degrees at the same time. They both went back to school. So I was always babysitting my little brother and stuff like that. So I never wanted to go out. But the point of that is they failed me. Like in a sense, like they didn't, I'm dead serious. I tell them to this day, like, how y'all failed me, man. Y'all worked in higher ed. Y'all didn't set me up for this. And so basically, man, I'll be real with you. My father came to me, man, 2 weeks before graduation. He was like, what's your plan? I was like, I'm going down to Parkland College, a community college about 2 hours away, because I knew that I couldn't stay where I was going to be at, where I was living at. None of my friends was going to college, you know what I'm saying? I didn't necessarily know what college held for me, but I knew where I was at with it, you know what I'm saying? Staying where I was at wasn't going to get me anywhere, and I mean, my father was like, man, that's good. I'm glad you're getting up out of here. And so I went down there, man, and like you talked about internship, like I didn't know, like I knew I had a Pell Grant, but I didn't know, what was going on. I remember I was hard-headed, man. I was 17, I had a late birthday, so I was 17. I didn't meet with advisors and stuff like that. And end of my first year, I ended up being a credit short of my Pell Grant. And so I was like, man, like, so they were like, hey, you're not gonna be able to get the Pell Grant with this, that, and the other. So that's when I learned what the Pell Grant was all about. And so I remember calling the crib, man, and my old man to this day, he apologized for it. He don't apologize for it, but I was like, hey, man, I'm short on the Pell Grant. We won't. He was like, I don't know what you call here for. You know what I'm saying? He said, we don't have nobody. This brother's a deacon in the church. I'm like, I just need you to tell me some advice. So I remember getting on the phone, man. I went to my boss. I was working a little part-time job, man. And she let me work. I worked every day for a whole semester, man. And it was just part-time, but still. But it goes back to Dr. Fryer's point. I think Brother Hartman, when they talk about, how we adjust, or the way we just do what we have to do, like, take responsibility. And so that's one of the issues, with the students I deal with now. Like I try to tell them, you have to seek out these resources. Because what I tell them is, once you grab, I said, right now you got everybody knocking on, because of the virtual platform, we see a lot of chronic absenteeism. And so we're like, man, we got to figure out how to get these students, to log on and things like that. So we're doing a lot of calling them and, home visits and everything we can do, which we should be doing. But the problem is kind of coddling students. And I explained to them is, what happens is, I said, once you get out of high school, if you don't go to college, because college, you still have those resources. I said, nobody's knocking on your door to offer you these resources. You have to seek them out, and that's the thing about it. And I think we do a really good job of that. Us as people of color, especially people come from urban areas, looking for those resources. And that's the key, man. That's the key to college. Like once you get there and you realize, like, hey, man, it's these, like you said, they say you're not good with grammar. There's a writing center, you know what I'm saying? They'll look over your papers for you, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, mentorships, fraternities, sororities, whatever it may be, you find a brotherhood, I tell my students all the time, the friends I made in college are more, these are my lifelong friends as opposed to people I actually grew up with. Because what happens is the people I grew up with, like, they see, we still cool, you know what I'm saying? But it's not, they didn't have the same journey no more, like their journey stopped in high school. So, sometimes there's that, and it's not a bad thing by any means. It's just, you grow up, you grow in different paths. So, but at the same time, when you're in college, you all know that's when you make these friendships, these relationships, and that's when we talk about networking. You all talk about, the fraternities. And I tell like when I had student workers, when I worked at the university, I said, hey man, I said, you might have, one of your friends from college, they might go up to California, get a job, and they might hook you up with a job out there. And that would have been a job you never would have had you not met this friend in college. So I think it's important, if we can get students to I think the hardest part is getting somebody to buy into the college process. You know what I'm saying? Like, a student who, if you're a first generation student, if nobody in your household has ever been in college, for the most part, it's not necessarily that you're against college. It's just, you don't know the benefits of it. In your mind is like, I don't see nobody around me who went to college, so, where do I see, in front of me that tells me that the college is going to be good for me? All I keep hearing about is these student loans and money and this, that, and the other. I could just go to work, So I think it's, that's the one of the, if we can get past that part of that barrier, I should say, I tell a lot of these students, man, I'm like, man, you will thrive in the college environment, explaining how, the way college is set up, it's not where you're in school all day and things like that. And a lot of times you think what you want to do as a 16, 17-year-old, coming out of high school, 18-year-old. But once you get to college, man, you start being in these classes, and you're like, man, it really, it inspires you to want to do other things. So I think that's a key component as well, too.
So let me ask you guys a question. So, because you just said something, Brother Hawkins-Smith, that when you in those environments, the question always is, no one else is going to college around me. So you become what you become. I hear that all the time. I hear all the people who have means, they'll say, I wanted to be what I saw in my neighborhood. So let's take that premise and in lieu of the Jay-Z, another deal Jay-Z got, right? How do you tell, again, that same premise that you were just saying, that college can be for them? So first, do this for me. Do you feel like college is for everyone? And then answer that question. Does that make sense? Is college for everyone? And then answer the true urban classroom being the Jay-Z's classrooms, those type of people's classrooms, then ours who went to college. I believe college is for everybody. I'm gonna put that out there. Let's go around the room and see, do you believe college is for everybody? And then I'll re-ask the question again.
Who you starting with, Lamont?
Yeah.
Who you starting out with, Lamont? You over here throwing assists, you don't know who you throwing the ball to.
Normally you, Dr. Froston, I know you normally catch it. So
He's throwing no-look passes out here, man.
my bad. That's my bad, bro. That's the Magic Johnson in me. I do apologize. David, you answer it first. Is college for everybody? That's a yes or no, and then we're gonna talk about, in lieu of Jay-Z's deal, how do you unpack it that way? If people like Jay-Z who never gone to college is a billionaire, and here it is, people going to college, like my brother Hawkins-Smith said, loans after loans after loans. That's what's on their brain. I got to listen to people when I go to classrooms say, can you talk to them about not being scared about student loans? I got to have those kind of conversations. So first of all, starting with you, David, brother Hawkins-Smith, then Frierson, is college for everybody?
I would say college is not for everybody, but education is for everybody.
I like that.
So they don't necessarily have to go and get a 4-year experience. One, if they're educating themselves on something they want to do, say if it's like real estate or something like that, they don't have to go to college to do that. Or if they want to be a mechanic or something, they can go get a certificate and do that type of stuff. So college isn't necessarily for everybody, but education definitely is. I
like that. You should trademark that, brother Smith.
get down a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I concur 100%, man. Definitely. I always hear people say, man, school just ain't for me. Like, school ain't for nobody, man. Like, nobody was born to be a student. But some people just, they pick up on it. But I agree, it's not the college is not necessarily, like I said, I'm an advocate of trade schools, if you want to, cosmetology, whatever it is. But I think it's important to at least look, to be open to the idea, like just don't let somebody tell you, it should be something that that you've been exposed. I think we all pretty much all of us know, working in, if we work in higher ed, the key is exposure. Like a lot of times students, if they just get exposure to a college campus. I remember when students used to come on our campus and they'd be like, they have the tough face. And then we would have them apply, and I would see it in their face, man. The moment they push submit, and they were like, damn, like, I applied to college, And so you would see, like, they just didn't know no better before they came in. But yeah, I agree. Education is educating yourself, no matter what it may be. But college itself is not necessarily for everyone.
Dr. Fries.
Yeah, well, there was a flaw in your question that's been exposed. The fact that you asked the question, is college for everybody, and then you cite Jay-Z, who did not go to college and was successful. Therefore, the evidence in the question that you cited was that college is not for everybody. Hold on, I'm still talking. I have the mic, sir. I have the mic. It's my time. I'm going to reclaim my time. So here we go. No, college is not for everybody. I concur and agree 100%. Education is for everybody. Lifelong learning is for everybody. But the problem is, we still parrot the narrative, you should go to college, instead of you should pursue your passion. Yeah. And your passion, someone who might be wants to be a plumber, but that doesn't get notoriety. I think about our sisters out here, right? Someone's got to do their hair. You don't got to go to college, right, but they make money, right? And so that I think we have to change the narrative of, if you don't do good, you're not going to college. No, if you don't understand life skills, you're not going to pursue your educational goals and whatever that might be, right? And so I think, college is not for everybody. And I think the system of college makes it not for everybody. Accessibility is expensive, right? It's not affordable sometimes. A lot of times, what is it like? 60% of people who graduate don't even work in the field that they got their major in, right? It's causing lifelong debt. So I could totally understand, and I work for a university, right? But I can totally understand why a student might be like, you want me to get $40,000 in debt,
Right.
and to be a financial slave? And think about that. It's also counterintuitive to how we teach financial literacy. Teach financial literacy to get you out of debt, but then we tell you to go into debt. Well, there's a part of it too, is like, I don't tell people it's going into debt, it's making an investment in yourself. And then you have to build on that investment. So that's really what a student loan is, how I talk about it. But to answer your question more succinctly, that was flawed. It was that, no, college is not for everybody. Education is.
I just wanted to unveil the alphas on the call. That's all I want to do. Look,
okay.
So this is the thing too. In really in 30 seconds of round robin, what's your definition of passion versus purpose? I'm gonna start with David Hartman again, and then Hawkins-Smith, and then Dr. Frierson.
Passion versus purpose. I would say passion is what you like to do, have a gift for, whatever. Once it becomes your purpose, you get to the space to where you can teach it.
Yeah, I was very well put. I would say like passion is like it's cliche as it sounds. It's like it's what is that, what drives you. Like it's that you don't even like it's just something like when you stay in, we work in higher ed, when you stay in late and you try and do something for somebody because it's going to benefit them, that's that passion. Like I can make this work. When I worked in admissions trying to get a student into the university who is not a traditional student, as they like to use the term traditional, which I can't stand. But I would say purpose is sometimes like you think you may think that your life's gonna go in one direction, what I'm saying, but everything's guiding you in another direction, and I never thought I would be in education, but that was I see now I feel like for myself it was my purpose to be in education. So
once again, we've asked a question that no, no. For me, the way I define, I'm gonna go backwards. I've always said this, and I think I've said this on previous shows before. Purpose is where your skills, talents, and abilities intersect humanity. That's where you find your purpose, when your skills, talents, and abilities intersect humanity. Shout out to Dr. Cornelius Sanders. That's where I got that from. And I think passion is the fuel that drives you to be connected to humanity, right? So for me, my passion is I want to make sure my kids have a resource in their father that they can come to me about anything. That's the only reason I pursued the PhD. If they want to know about what it's like to go through this level, fine. I want them to be able to have me and my wife as their ultimate resource for anything. So that's my passion, is so that they know how to connect to humanity in various aspects and genres and stuff like that. But my purpose is that I have a skill set in education and speaking and motivation and inspiration that connects to humanity, that can elevate them. So that's my purpose, is where my skills, talents, and abilities intersect humanity.
Again, you listen.
Hey, Brother Thompson, before you get started real quick, I want to say, because you hit me with something with that Jay-Z thing. I think it's important, man. We, like it's outside of, we know this, but I'm saying like just in general as the public, like I think outside of Black History Month, we need to really start elevating people who are everyday people, our teachers, like the way we hype, don't get me wrong, 250 million, it's an awesome deal. I get it. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I think, that's what students see, you know what I'm saying? Like they see these people getting hyped and getting the glory, you know what I'm saying? Obviously the money plays a big part of it, but even before he was doing $250 million deals, any little thing Jay-Z did, we would, that's something that, there's going to be all on IG, all on, on Twitter and things like that. I think if we really show the things that people are doing, man, especially Black folks, you know what I'm saying, like within science, within, within STEM, I should say, within, the lawyers, the doctors, whatever it may be, man, I think it's important to show students, man, that, we can be more than just, entertainers and, like there's more to it, I remember one of my biggest things of the old Kanye was his first album when he was just hating on education so bad, man. I was just like, dude, I get it. It didn't work out for you, you know what I'm saying? But we can't keep sending, you know what I'm saying? You can't just keep acting like, you know, education is stupid and da-da-da-da. You know, that's not the message, man, you know? And so I think it's important that, you know, students understand, man, that, you know, there's a small percentage of people who, you know, who be as successful. Anybody can be successful, but as successful as a Kanye, a Jay-Z, or anybody else who, you know, like on that level who didn't go to college. So I think, you know, I think we do enough, but I just think I wish society, as Wes phrased it, I wish society would do a better job of hyping just everyday people, man, you know, and the importance of those people, and the students have an easier, you know, they have, you know, there's a path for them to attain those type of goals, as opposed to trying to be, you know, the CEO of a champagne company. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's just one.
I think it's improving, right? Because you know, going back to your question about Jay-Z, you know, they talk about they want to be a product of the environment that they see, right? This is what I see, right? But you know, that's not necessarily all the case, because you see more than just athletics and stuff like that. But I think what was televised to our youth, to us when we were younger, was mainly two images: rappers and athletics. And I always say television tells you what to envision. That's the definition. It tells you what to envision. And so when we were growing up, you did see more, and like BET, think about it, you just saw more entertainment and stuff. But to counter that, we also saw the Cosbys, Family Matters, you know, all these shows, the Fresh Prince, where you start to see this transition. And now we're starting to see, even on like CNN, Fox, MSNBC, you're starting to see these black scholars, indigenous scholars on there, who come with a different type of voice, different type of intellect. So hopefully that does change this envisioning process of what people can be. You're starting to see people really get into even some of these I know, like who was it, Will.i.am, and then like Lil Wayne and stuff like that. They're big into like tech and programming and stuff like that. So you're starting to see people expose people to different things outside of what just got them to the top and got them on TV, and trying to televise a little bit differently. So I'm hopeful that students are getting that experience. Like my daughter is big into like computers and stuff, because she sees that. My son is big into just paleontologists, and that because that's a different exposure that he's got into, right? So I think it's changing, but yeah, I think overall, you know, television tells you what to envision, and there's still a large majority of what we see is the LeBrons, the Kanyes, the Jay-Z's, and we don't see enough of the doctors or the medical people, or, you know, the lawyers and things like that. So
Dr. Froston, you said something, because I was about to switch, because we're coming to the end of the podcast, but there's something that was said, and people don't understand. They see the end result, but but Jay-Z's model is very simple. It's dissected in, and which goes back to my first question about passion, purpose. Your passion is gas. It's that thing that drives you to your purpose until you realize until your purpose is unveiled, right? And so what I'm looking at with Jay-Z is real simple. He chose things that he liked. He liked rapping. He liked partying. He likes clothes. He likes drinking. He likes sports. It's 5 sections of what he did and what he has. And within those 5 sections, there was wealth that was built in those 5 sections. Really simple. What we do is we look at the end result, but if it's just broken down into what you love. Those 5 things is what he loves. And so that becomes those horses, or that purpose that is unveiled. So this is one of the things, this is one of the reasons why I love the conversation that we're having right now, is because education, and I love what you said, David, about you define school and education for me. You can go to college and still not get an education. I think what you guys are providing is that education. This is why I'm applauding you guys from coming from where we all have come from, and to get to where we at now. At minimum, there's a bachelor's plus degree on this podcast right now. And that may not mean anything to people who follow the Jay-Z's, but for those other people, that is worth applauding. We went through a lot to get to where we at right now.
You're dang right. Say that again.
We've gone through a lot. And so this is why we got to keep doing these type of podcasts. We got to keep being what W.B. Du Bois was talking about, that talented 10th. Maybe not the true essence of his definition, but our own definition, because we've encountered enough education to define it for ourselves. And so when we take what we have and we do what you said, Brother Hawkins, and we go back to those kids who asked that question, is college really for me? Well, they need to see more people going to college, and they need to see more people going to college winning. That everyday person is winning, depending on who's making the definition, right? That's what we gotta do. We gotta start giving them more definitions. We gotta start giving them more examples so they can see other examples, because Jay-Z is where Jay-Z is because we following them. And this is one thing that I never understood, is that those of us who go to college follow people who don't go to college. And I think sometimes it's just me. I think it's an insecurity that we still carry for whatever reason, that we uplift other people before we uplift ourselves. That's one thing I'm trying to figure out, because Jay-Z should be following us in essence, because that's what we're told when we go to college. Like, we're supposed to be the cream of the crop, but we don't, because we elevate somebody else and then they become the cream. Now we reshaping our definition.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody should be following anybody. I think everybody's a trailblazer. That's the problem, is that we don't allow people to have their vision. And, that's why I say, I always see, I think I've talked to y'all about this, the difference between a trailblazer and a leader. A leader just teaches people how to follow the path that they're already on. But a trailblazer is someone who sees empty land, empty resources, and puts a path there that the leader can now bring people to follow, right? And I'm thinking, like, for me, I think that what we need to do is have people be trailblazers and figure out their own unique skill sets. What you just said with Jay-Z is very simple. That's the Warren Buffett mindset. That's how he became a billionaire. Exactly right. He invested in things he saw every day in Omaha, Nebraska, right? And he was like, everybody buying this? Let me go ahead and invest in this, right? And so I think that's real simple. And I think, but what you're saying, I think is true, that we need to, instead, fast money doesn't always mean long money. Right? Because you can get money fast, and and when you're growing up, you want to get money and you want to be a millionaire at 22, 25, but then you are absent of the wisdom on how to keep it. So you have riches, you don't have wealth because you lack wisdom. So fast money doesn't always mean long money. And I learned that, as we're coming through, I'd rather have long money. And I'd rather have it to where it sustains me, my future, the generation after me, and the generation after that, so they can understand principles of wealth and the principles of innovation and being a trailblazer, instead of just saying, I copped $30 million at 25 and I'm rich, but then you broke at 45. You know what I'm saying? And you don't know what to do. And I think this thing about for athletics and most musicians, right, that make it, how many of them do, we talk about Jay-Z, who has long stand. He's a genius, and so don't get me wrong on that. But there's a lot of other rappers that we grew up with. There's a lot of other ball players we grew up with who are broke. We don't talk about them no more because they have fast money. They don't have long money. And so it's very rare that you get someone who gets into fast money and able to convert it to long money. And I think that needs to be applauded with P. Diddy, Jay-Z, all these other people. But like you said, Lamont, majority of the people, they need to understand how to maintain long money. That's wealth, not riches.
I like it. David?
I was going to say one part in here, since we're talking about education. One, in order for anybody at that level to be able to move in multiple fields, they either have to go get educated in that space or find somebody who is educated in that space to help them. So you may not be the Jay-Z or the 50 Cent or the P. Diddy, but you could be the person that's standing next to them who has the education and the knowledge to help them get in that door and also be successful that way as well. So
I like it. So we got 30 seconds apiece left. I just need you guys to provide a little motivation, little inspiration, whatever your heart desire, but you got 30 seconds. And we're going to start with you, brother Hawkins-Smith, you the guest. And then,
all right. Appreciate that, man. I would say, you know, whenever I sign a card or whatever, you know, if I'm trying to motivate somebody, I always tell them keep the faith and keep moving forward. And I think that's important. You know, like no matter what you're doing, like we talked about, education is the key. And I really feel that, you know, and we talk about education, not necessarily in the sense of college, like we talked about before. It could be if you want to go to cosmetology school, trade school, doing a apprenticeship, whatever it may be. Just make sure you know you're constantly educating yourself. You know, even I wait till I got older till I started watching like documentaries and things like that. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be to a point where you know you're deep into a book all the time or something like that. Or if somebody doesn't like to read, they have audiobooks now. You know, that's what's deep. So you know, I think it's important to always be furthering yourself, educating yourself because you never. I have a buddy. He does real estate, man, and he owns he manages now. He sold a lot of his property. He just manages a lot of like apartments and houses and things like that. And one day I went by his office, man, and he was like, man, you know what? He fixed his air conditioning. He said, I never knew how to fix air conditioning. He goes, but I went on YouTube. He said, it taught me. He said, that saved me $600 right there. You know what I'm saying? He said, and so that's what he was saying. He was like, man, this dude who has money, but he saved that. Like we talked about, that's how you know your Dr. Fryers was talking about, you know, going broke. Like you know, this brother has money, but he's still you know learning ways to maintain that money. And so by educating himself on stuff that you know he's uneducated on. So I think that's important. Just you know, constant education. You know, looking for platforms like Wheresmydocs. You know, to fill that void. You know, from you know if you don't know how to you know what college is the best fit for you, or you know looking you know it can be intimidating. You know, if you are looking at going to college and you know you're first generation and nobody around you knows about that process. You know, a lot of times you don't want to raise your hand and ask those questions because you don't want to. You know, you feel like you know it might be a dumb question or this that and the other. So it's important that you know there's resources out there. You know that can really help you and fill that void for you.
David.
I would say, I guess one right out of plan. I know you probably heard of people talking about a vision board and all that kind of stuff. Right out of plan. What do you plan to do? What do you want to do? I would say it's definitely easier to hit a target if you can see it.
I like it. Dr. Farson.
Failure's not the end, quitting is. You fail your way up sometimes. You know, failure is the first attempt in learning. So failure's not the end, quitting is.
There you have it. Another episode of Educate You being brought to you once again by My College Draft, where education is the new money. Fellas, I enjoyed the show. We're going to have to do it again. And for those who are listening, if you're trying to find your lane, and sometimes it can be difficult, but once you find your lane, stick to it because it's going to take you where you need to go. I promise you, if you don't believe me, follow us on all of our social media at My College Draft, whether it be TikTok, whether it be YouTube, whether it be Instagram, follow us and we will help you get there. So again, fellas, thank you so much. Once again, you've been listening to Educate You Podcast.